It's time to turn your life-challenging moments into life-changing messages. Welcome to the Power Lift Stories podcast, where we are interviewing women whose stories will leave you lifted up, fired up, and fueled up with hope, courage, and inspiration. We want to thank our sponsor, Powerful Journey, who helps women tell their stories, write their books, and building a profitable brand around both. Join the masterclass or the Speakers Academy at phyllisjenkins.com. That is PHYLLISJENKINS.com. Now here's your host, Phyllis Jenkins.
Hello to my Power Lift Stories community. Welcome back, and I am super excited that you've joined us today. And we will be talking about how to turn obstacles into opportunities. And you know that through the Powerful Journey organization, that's what we're all about. So I am excited to welcome today to our podcast, Crissy Maier. Crissy, good morning.
Good morning, Phyllis. How are you?
I am absolutely wonderful and super excited to have you as our guest today. And let me just share with you, to our audience, that Crissy and I met, I guess, a year ago. We are in the same mastermind, and so I've been enjoying watching Crissy explode with great opportunities, and you'll hear more about those, how she's growing her business. But first, let me just tell you a little bit more about Crissy. Crissy is a resident now of New Jersey, and that is correct, right? You're in
I'm still in New York. I'm on Long Island, the other side of the city.
Okay. So there you go. You heard it. But let me tell you, Crissy, for 20 years, served on the NYPD. Isn't that cool? I shared with her this morning. I didn't know that. And so how great is that? She also was a rescue worker during 9/11. And Crissy, we thank you for that. Crissy was an instructor in the police academy. She was promoted to sergeant in 2007. She was a recipient of the Elliott Lumbar Scholarship. She was also a member of the planning and a speaker at the National Homeland Security Conference. I'm loving all of this about you, Crissy. And she has been a manager of 35 amazing individuals coordinating emergency response. But more than that, Crissy has become an author of great books, and she has her own organization. So Crissy, I'm going to turn it over to you now to share a little bit more about who Crissy Maier is.
Yeah, thank you, Phyllis. That is, you reminded me of what a wonderful 20 years I had with the NYPD, and I retired 2 years ago this month, and I miss it, but I'm glad. It's been challenging times in law enforcement since then, but now I'm doing different things where I can help people in different ways. But I was born with a cleft lip and palate. I was learning disabled as a kid, and all of those things just were challenges, and I had to learn how to overcome them because nobody told me I wasn't supposed to. I just said, here's a problem. How do I get through it or around it? How do I solve it? And that's just how I live my life.
Love that. And so many have benefited because of that. So let's just jump into our interview. And I would like to ask you, if you were to give your life-changing story a title, what would that title be and why?
Oh gosh, good question. I think it would be, oh gosh, last round draft pick for the elementary school kickball team becomes, I don't know. I think I would just stick with last round draft pick for the elementary school kickball team.
Yeah, and
just let
like
people
look
wonder.
at me now. Look at how God has taken you from the last draft pick to impacting and changing lives. So I love that. Love that. Would you please share more about your life-changing story?
Yeah, so this actually, it was third grade, and you know, elementary school, schoolyard pick, kickball team for gym class. And I'm, one of the last kids picked as usual. And I get my turn at bat, and I try to bunt the ball, and it kind of just goes straight to the pitcher, who scoops it up and throws it at me. And as I'm running to first base, it goes flying over my head and into the fence. And now I'm like, oh, I might make it to first base. And so I run even faster, and I make it to first base, and everybody cheers. And it seems like such a small thing, but I never made it there, on my own. And now I did. And so it was this great feeling. And I said, it's because I'm small. It's because I'm the small kid. They're used to throwing the ball higher. And so they missed me. And that's how I got here.
Love that story. I love that story. And how many of us can relate to being different in some kind of way? I was a skinny kid on the block, and so I grew up with being called, my legs were the spaghetti and my knees were the meatballs. And but you know what? We turn those obstacles into opportunities, and God has truly allowed us to impact others, and others who have had obstacles that maybe they were not able to overcome. But with our messages going forward in such a powerful way, we're able to help them to lift up and to overcome.
Yeah.
So, Chris,
oh yeah, sorry. And I always think, if I thought I was this, non-athletic little kid, and that was who I was, why would I become a cop? Like, that's it's not all physical job, but having a little more physical abilities is helpful with it.
It is indeed. And, God shows himself mighty in our experiences. Would you share with us how God has shown up and showed out through your different life experiences?
Yeah, I believe in God. I always believe he's here with us. He's guiding us through life. But I'm not somebody who goes, God talks to me. I don't feel like I get messages from him regularly. But I did, a few years ago, I was doing a program, and I had to write a psalm to God, is actually what I had to do. And as I went to do it, I started physically having pain, and I physically could not write this letter. And so I went to bed, and I woke up, and something said, look at the clock. So I roll over, I look at the clock, and it's 3:33 in the morning. And I'm like, okay, that's great. And went back to sleep. But then I woke up a little while later, and I said, that's really an odd time to wake up. So, I Googled it, and 333 is in numerology is a message from God that he is with you in your journey. Wow. And ever since that moment, whenever things feel rough, I question myself. I go, God's with me. And if I'm going on the wrong track, he's going to tell me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. And how many of us have had those early morning calls from God to wake up and listen and write? If you're like me, I sleep with notepad and pencil beside my bed, because if I don't write it down when it comes, the next morning it's gone. And I have begged sometimes, please give it back to me, but I've also learned to write it down. Wake up, write it down right then and there. Love that. I didn't realize what the 333 meant. So thank you for sharing that. So, Crissy, you are the author of several books, and I would love now to talk about, especially your children's book that you just wrote about. If you would show a copy of it, and
I have one right here.
very good, The Too Tall Giraffe.
Yes.
Share your backstory of writing that, and let's talk about it for a bit.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier I was learning disabled, so in reading comprehension was really where I had challenges. And in high school, a friend got me reading a romance novel, which I'd never read unless you forced me to. And all of a sudden I learned I loved reading, and became a much better reader. And my senior year in high school, I took a reading and writing class, and one of our assignments was to write a children's book. So that was the first version of The Too Tall Giraffe, but I left it at school and never saw it again. And so for years, I always sort of wished I had it. And so about 2 years ago, I decided it's time to write it and publish it. And it is here now.
Very good, very good. I have my copy, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with my grandchildren. And I know that you have published it in more than one language, correct?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have it in German too.
That is so great. So great. Do you want to share a little about the story?
Yeah, so the main character, or giraffe, her name is Savannah, and she is obviously the too tall giraffe. And when she goes to a new school, the other kids start teasing her, and they don't want to play with her, and they don't want to be friends with her. And so she's sad. And eventually she has opportunities to help the other kids and or cats. And so she has to decide if she wants to do that. And then there comes a moment where she finds her superpower. And I'll let you read to find out what happens. But it's a children's story. It has a happy ending.
Great. That's great. And how can our listeners purchase your book?
It is available pretty much anywhere you can buy a book. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million. Your local bookstore should be able to get a copy of it. And also, if you go to thetwootallgiraffe.com, there is lots of information about the book and links to purchase it at the bottom of the page.
Love that. Now, I also know that if our listeners go to your website, that they are able to download your Find Your Focus journal. I am big on journals, and would you like to share a little bit more about the journal?
Yeah, it's something that I made up because I found there's so many people who they want all these different things, but they also feel very I don't want to say negative about themselves, but that inside voice takes over a little too often. And so this is something that sort of helps them find those positive things in their life and helps them get a little bit more focus, particularly a positive focus about themselves.
Love that. Love that. So, Crissy, you've shared about your life-changing story, and is there anything else about your story, your life, your books that you would like to share with our listeners?
I just, whatever challenge you're having, just know we all have them. We're all going to always have them, but they are going to make us stronger people. They're going to tell us what we're made of, what our skills are, what our superpowers are, and how we can help other people. Because at the end of it, you're going to feel so much more accomplished for having been through it and overcome it.
Love that. Well, I am going to ask our very last question, but to our listeners, we will have all of the contact information for Crissy in the show notes. and how you can purchase her books. And we've only talked about one book, but you do have other books that you'd like to share.
Yeah, my first book is a novel called Blue Sky Morning. And this is about a woman who has a great life, and then it all kind of comes crashing down at one moment. And she does what I would do in that moment, and that is travel the world. So if you like to read about women finding themselves again and or traveling around the world, it is the perfect book for you, because literally she goes around the world in 6 months, and it was so much fun to write about places I've been, places I've never been.
Love that. And you've done some great adventures. I think I remember seeing in Africa you did some type of diving, or
Yeah, I did cage diving in South Africa. I'm glad I did it. I will never do it again.
That's pretty courageous of you.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, I absolutely love all that I've heard, and I know that our listeners are enjoying your conversation as well. But I want to finish it off by saying I want you to imagine that you just stood on stage and you shared your life-changing message. In the audience, Crissy, there were a sea of women. That's all you could see from the front of the stage to the back, just women who were listening to your every word. Some of those women were connecting to your story of changing opportunities, turning obstacles into opportunities. You see women who are wiping tears because they are connecting and excited to hear how you turn your situation around for a positive. But now it is ended. The women have turned to walk away to go to their vehicles. Crissy is on stage, the curtains draw, and now it's time for you to turn, walk away, and go to your vehicle. What are 3 things or 3 lessons that you hope that every woman walked away with?
That whatever they're going through will have an end, and it will have a lesson from it that will make them a more powerful woman. That whatever that was, they can turn that into something else. They can turn that into helping another person, a friend, a child, a parent, because there's going to be somebody else who went through that same thing and they need your support. And lastly, I want them to know that there's another life for each one of us. We just need to seek it out.
I love that. So beautifully said. And your life is certainly a great example of that. And to our listeners, you know that I believe that we all have a story to tell, and that story is not for us. And I am on a mission to have every woman that I meet to tell her story. And with that said, we are writing now our anthology called Telling Our Stories Anthology. Volume 1 is full, but guess what? We have volume 2 that has opened up. And if you are ready to tell your story, reach out to me so that you can become a part of the Telling Our Stories Anthology Volume 2. And you will become a published author with your picture on the cover of the book, along with other women who are telling their stories. Your story becomes an arsenal in someone else's survival kit. Your story becomes the encouragement, the hope, the inspiration that others need to be able to pick up and move forward in what they have been called, created, and purposed to do. So I implore you to reach out so that you too can tell your story. Just as we've heard Crissy's story today. And Crissy, again, I am super excited that you joined us and that you shared your amazing story today. And we are looking forward to hearing and seeing how God continues to use you. So to the Power Lift Stories community, go and purchase the books. Go to her website and download the Find Your Focus journal, and then share it with others as well. And last but not least, if you have not yet subscribed to this podcast, go on and hit the subscribe button. We would love to hear your comments from today's interview, my conversation with Crissy Maier, and like it as well. So thank you again for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you back here next week. Make it a powerful day. Thank you, Crissy, again.
Thank you so much for having me.
It was wonderful to have you on the podcast.
Thank you for joining us today. If you are interested in being on the show, go to phyllisjenkins.com. You can also sign up for the Powerful Journey Masterclass or the Speakers Academy at phyllisjenkins.com.